When we tell people to be more confident, I always say, what does that actually mean? That's ambiguous, that's anxiety inducing. And when I say when I say be more confident, it's more hold up a mirror to how truly powerful you are. Do you know how to do that the way a 5-year-old would? Stop telling women they have imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome implies we're unwell or we're criminals. And 80% of the reason we're made to feel bad is because we didn't create the scorecard.
What are some simple steps that people could take to begin to walk in their power and transform from self-conscious to self-confident? I feel like a lot of people don't believe they can, and they put people on a pedestal that have the strengths that they like or lack or that they want, not knowing that if you simply believed a little bit more and put forth the effort, you could have that too.
We're stepping high, we're chasing dreams. Selena Hill, setting the scene. Life's a story, let's unfold. Sharing wisdom, tales untold.
Hey fam, and welcome to Over the Hill, the podcast that helps you ascend to new heights in relationships, success, and finance, and helps equip you to build the life you deserve. I'm your sister in purpose, Selena Hill, and today I have the privilege to speak with Lisa Sun, the founder and CEO of Gravitas, a clothing line that promotes body positivity, inclusion, and self-confidence. She is also the author of the best-selling book, Gravitas, The 8 Strengths That Redefine Confidence. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Lisa spent 11 years at McKinsey Company, where she advised leading luxury, fashion, and beauty brands around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa.
What a privilege to be with you, Selena. I'm such a fan of all the work you all do. So, what a fun way to spend a Saturday.
Amazing. And I'm a fan as well. And I want to just jump right into it. You know, I read a statistics that said around 85% of people suffer from low self-esteem around the world. And I know you sort of like been using and coined the phrase confidence crisis. Like, is this what you meant by confidence crisis? And tell us why that matters.
You know, one of the things that I will say is confidence for centuries has been defined by men. And it tends to be correlated with things like extroversion, charisma. And if you look it up in the dictionary, it has nothing to do with bravado or swagger. It's an understanding and appreciation of your own abilities, something that we as adults struggle with. And so, beyond just the fact that most of us struggle with this idea, we're also challenging how society has defined confidence for so long. And I think that's really why it's a crisis, is we've got to redefine what it means before we can give people the tools to embrace it.
And Lisa, I love the fact that you brought up how confidence, as many things in our world, was defined by men. So why do you believe that statistically women have lower confidence than men?
Well, I would say, let's start off with the fact that we're all born fully self-confident. Okay. If you ever talk to a 5-year-old, 5-year-olds are the most confident people in the world. Okay. They will tell you that they're the best at soccer, the best at hugs, the best at everything. Boys, girls, everybody at 5 years old, they love themselves. And what we identified is between the ages of 8 and 12, you have an inner critic that shows up. And there's all these forces. We identified 6 forces that hold us back from confidence that show up in our lives. Boys and girls go through it equally. But then what ends up happening is, because men have designed the system, those 6 forces get better for boys and worse for girls. Like, a great example of that is if you ever go to a party and you see kind of young children running around. Oh, boys, you run wild. Just have fun. Girl, you sit there, polite, cross your legs, right? And sort of all of a sudden the system starts to teach us these behaviors, and we see this divide happen in the teenage years between boys and girls. And so I would say 80% of the reason why we have less confidence is actually systemic bias. It's a set of structural scorecards. I'll give you the best example of this. Kelly Shue at Yale School of Management, she looked at 30,000 employee records, and she saw that men were consistently rated the highest on promotability, but the lowest on actual work, on actual performance and results. Women were the reverse. They did all the work, but they weren't promotable. And when she double clicked on promotion potential, it was assertiveness, outspokenness, bravado, and swagger. So she said, look, oh my gosh, 40% of the pay gap related to promotion potential is because we have an incomplete, outdated, and biased scorecard. And so I would like to say for all the women out there, first of all, it's not our fault, right? If we controlled the system, we would have valued a different set of capabilities and talents that weren't just about how loud you are in a room.
One of the statistics, and you gave us a lot of gems just now. One of the things you just dropped, you said the confidence different. You see a difference in children between the ages of 8 and 12. And you said at 5, you're right. Because when I ask my little 5-year-old cousins what they want to be when they grow up, they're like an astronaut, a singer, and a teacher. I will be all those things, Selena. And I'm like, yes, you will. All the confidence in the world. What happens at 8 years old that makes them, that I guess affects their confidence?
Well, we identified 6 forces that hold us back. And I love talking about these 6 forces because when you can label insecurity and fear and why you have it, when you can double click on it, you take away its power. So there are 6 things that show up between the ages of 8 and 12. The first is what we call the deficit mindset. This is where you see your weaknesses or your flaws over your strengths and potential. Simplest way is when you look in the mirror, do you look for your beautiful eyes or the new wrinkle that just formed? The second thing that shows up is what we call shrinking effect. This is where you underestimate yourself, shortchange yourself. How many people say sorry all day long when they haven't done anything wrong? I always say today's the day you say thank you, I appreciate you, great feedback. When you say sorry as a default, it means that you think there's something wrong with you. This is also why girls will only put their hat in the ring if they feel 100% perfect to sit in the seat. Whereas boys are like, I don't know, I'm 60% qualified. Let me try anyways. What do I have to lose? The third thing that shows up is what we call satisfaction conundrum. This is where we tie our happiness to an external marker of success. I'll be happy when I win that award. I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds. I'll be happy when I'm not saying not to have goals, but when you tie your happiness to an external marker, what happens? If you get it, you're not satisfied and you just chase the next one. Or if you don't, you beat yourself up and you don't see all the amazing things happening in your life. The fourth one is what we call superhero facade. I got this. I'm perfect. Everything in my life is awesome. Shonda Rhimes, in her Dartmouth commencement speech, said, whenever you see me succeeding in one part of my life, I promise you I'm failing somewhere else. Confident people actually are not superheroes because if you're a superhero, no one can help you. No one can have fingerprints on your journey. And so the most confident people are really good at saying, here's what I'm really good at. Here's where I need some help. It's not that I'm weak. I just need some help. The fifth force, we call it setback spiral. This is where a negative moment all of a sudden spirals to expound to how you feel about your entire life. Oh my gosh, my boss just told me this. That must mean I'm a terrible sister, mother, best friend. Everything in my life is off. And the sixth force, which we just talked about, we call it systemic bias. This is where there are asymmetrical structures of power. The rules were not created by us or for us. I will tell you my favorite Harvard Business Review article is Ruchika Tulshyan and Jodi Ann Burey. They're two of my friends. It's called Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome, because imposter syndrome implies we're unwell or we're criminals. And 80% of the reason we're made to feel bad is because we didn't create the scorecard. And so between the ages of 8 and 12, these 6 forces start to show up and we're exposed to a wider social circle. There's potential for shame, embarrassment. We have more public opportunities. And so what ends up happening between the ages of 8 and 12 is girls develop an inner critic that never goes away for good. And we're not taught the tools to manage that inner critic. Even beyond that, to see the best in ourselves. And I think it's funny when we tell people to be more confident, I always say, what does that actually mean? That's ambiguous, that's anxiety inducing. And when I say when I say be more confident, it's more hold up a mirror to how truly powerful you are. Do you know how to do that the way a 5-year-old would?
Mm. So how would you define a confident person, Lisa?
I define it as someone who knows their own worth, advocates for it, and takes action with it. So we do this audience exercise. I own a fashion company. So I dress hundreds of women a year. You can book a 30-minute appointment with me. It's called the Confidence Closet. Every woman comes into the dressing room with all six forces that I just described. I hate my arms, I hate my thighs, I'm going through menopause, I just had a baby. Her inner critic shows up before she does. She
Mm.
sets herself up to fail. And so what I do is I ask every woman I dress, I said, look, we're going to get to the clothes. I'm a dress whisperer. I get it right on the first time. You'll be in and out of here in 30 minutes. But I won't do this fitting until you answer three questions about yourself. First, what are you the best at in the world? A question a 5-year-old could answer. The second is, what are you most proud of in the last 12 months of your life? And the third is, if your best friend were standing here, what would they tell me about you? And no woman wants to do this. She's like, and Lisa, like this, I'm not here for a psychological exam. And I said, yeah, but you came in here with a negative mindset. We have to change that. We have to start laughing and smiling together. Otherwise, you're going to say everything doesn't work. And so I always say that dressing room is an analogy for our lives, that the most confident people in the world walk into every situation saying, hey, I'm pretty proud of the things that I've accomplished in my life. I'm really going to take credit for the fact that I'm the best at getting things done. I'm the one everyone turns to in terms of giving and caring. There's all these other ways we need to see ourselves. You cannot give what you do not know you have.
Elisa, that was so powerful. And one of the things that I think really resonated with me is when you said, if you have a negative mindset when you are stepping into the dressing room or any opportunity, that automatically affects the what you're seeing, right? The outcome. You're already, coming in with a negative perspective. So I love that you said that you're helping women build confidence from the outside and the inside. You are dressing them and styling them in clothes that are flattering and make them feel good, but you're also addressing that inner critic. So powerful, so profound. Another thing, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so the analogy, the visual I love to give people is think about an iceberg. Okay. Only 10% of the iceberg is visible above the waterline. It's behavior. It's what I can see. 90% of the iceberg is below the waterline. It's thoughts, values, feelings, wants, and needs. So before we can ask people to behave differently, that outer expression, we have to reset the 90% of ourselves below the waterline. And when you ask the question, what do the most confident people in the world do? It's not about outer expression. It's inner belief before outer expression. Otherwise, you're just faking it. When I was 25 years old, someone said to me, you're very confident. I'm like, I'm faking it. I'm deeply insecure and overachieving. I haven't actually set what's on the inside right yet before I go out into the world. And I think that's what the shift is when we come back to this confidence crisis. Ultimately, we have to change what that means. And then everyone has the permission to have it.
One thing that I think about when you say, confidence, right? Sometimes is it nature versus nurture? It sounds like it's been a journey for you. If you can expand upon that, like were you? I mean, you said all children are born confident, and then things happen and that affects it. How did you become the beautiful, confident woman that you are today?
And I would say my inner critic shows up every day. Let's be clear. Like, I will raise my hand saying that every single day, one, if not all six of those forces of the inner critic show up in my head. What I wish I could, I wrote a book about this because I wish I could go back in the time machine to give my 25-year-old self my own book. What I teach and what I practice for myself is everyday confidence is a choice and a mindset before it becomes a behavior. And if I wake up with negative self-talk, I've developed a set of tools to talk myself out of it, essentially. And it boiled down to about 7 years ago, we launched a 10,000 person quantitative study on confidence in America. Like, that's kind of a weird thing to do during a pandemic, FYI, but people love to fill out surveys and join focus groups when they're
I'm one of
stuck at
them.
home. Yeah, exactly. Me too. I was like, what are we going to do? We're all at home. Let's have them answer questions about confidence. And what we found is that there are 8 superpowers that underpin why you should believe in yourself. Most of us have 2 or 3. My mom, who's my role model, by the way, she took our quiz. She has all 8. She's like, I take your quiz. I'm all 8. By the way, 2% of people do have all 8. They tend to be people over the age of 50. Women over the age of 50 are actually the most powerful women in our data set, which I freaking love. But it's not like Pokemon. You don't need to catch them all. I only have 4.5 of them. But when we developed this methodology, I looked at it and I said, this is why I'm successful. This is a vocabulary through which I can see all my talents. It was very self affirming to be able to take an inventory of my talents. And that is when I wake up in the morning, I go, even though I'm scared of the things I have to do today, being an entrepreneur is really hard. People don't talk about how hard it is. I always say, well, here are my three superpowers. This is why today is going to be great. And by the way, here are my team's superpowers. I know all of my teammates' superpowers. And together we have all eight of them. It means that everything is possible. And I'm happy to walk you through the eight superpowers because it's fun to talk about. But
That was
but
my
that's
next question.
really, yeah, great. Okay, look at that, Selena. I'm ahead of you. No, but it's really a powerful tool. If I put you on the spot right now, Selena, and I said, tell me everything that's great about you, you'd be like, well, maybe you could. I actually think you could. I think you would be like, yes, let me give you the list.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you're like, I do know. But that's what I think the most confident people in the world do. They know it on demand. They know it the way a 5-year-old knows it. And that's what we're teaching folks.
Love that, Lisa. So let's walk through all 8 of those strengths. And again,
Sure.
those are highlighted in your book.
Yeah, and you can take a quiz for free. It's at myconfidencelanguage.com. It's a free quiz to figure out which ones you have. So here are the 8. The first 2 are leading and performing. Leading is I'm in charge, I set direction, I'm in command, I have followership, I set direction and vision. Performing is what you and I are doing right now. We love an audience, we have extroversion, charisma, we don't mind having people around us, and we love that energy exchange. Leading and performing are the 2 most often talked about when it comes to confidence. They represent less than 20% of people in America. This is why 80% of us have been made to feel bad most of our lives. So that's why we identified in the research the other 6, because there are other ways in which you can have a route to self-belief. The next 2, which I love to talk about, are called achieving and knowing. Achieving. I'm an athlete. I get things done on time. You set a target, I will meet or exceed it. Practice makes perfect. If I fail, I try again. Knowing, I'm the smartest, most thoughtful, most process-oriented, most research-backed person in the room. I always say you want to build IKEA furniture because that's the person who's going to read the manual. The best example of this, the 3 Black women in the movie Hidden Figures. How do 3 Black women have the confidence to be at NASA in the 60s and 70s? They weren't leading and performing because, by the way, if we led and performed all day, nothing would get done. They were the smartest computers who could do the math to send a person to science, into space. That is actually the source of their self-belief, is they truly were the smartest people. The next 2 are giving and believing. So I'm nurturing, I'm caring, I'm empathetic. Believing, I'm optimistic. I see the best in everyone in every situation. The best example of that in pop culture right now is the TV show Ted Lasso. For those of you who don't know Ted Lasso, he's a soccer coach, and he says in season 1, I've been underestimated my whole life because I'm not a leader or, commander coach. I don't bark out orders. I'm not here to win or lose. I'm here to get the best out of everyone and see the best in every situation. And by the last season, season 3, believing is actually the shared superpower that powers them to their milestones. The last 2 superpowers are creating. That's my number 1 superpower. And I think it's because I was raised by immigrants. I believe in things before I can see them. I can will ideas into existence. I can create something from nothing. And then self-sustaining. This is actually the hardest superpower for people to get. Self-sustaining is I like myself. I don't need to impress you. External markers are nice, but they don't define me. I know exactly who I am. This is the quality most needed to ask for a raise because you're not afraid to hear no. You're like, I know my market value. If you say no, somebody else is going to give that to me. And overcome criticism without spiraling. But these 8 together all of a sudden change the way we talk about confidence. If someone says to you, be more confident, you can say, which of these 8? You want me to be more performing and speak up? Okay, that clarifies it. Or do you want me to be more self-sustaining and not spiral when bad things happen? But it's really fun. When you take our quiz, it's not a personality test because you can add superpowers over time. It's an inventory of why you should believe in yourself.
I encourage everyone to take the quiz. I took it myself, and I remember, I don't remember exactly all the results. They were pretty high, but my lowest was actually giving. So I was like, well, I need to actually work on that a bit. But yes, take the survey. It definitely helps to not only understand yourself, but to, again, understand what truly defines confidence. And I think it's good and important for us to know how we show up in the world, right? What is it when I step in a room? What is it that people perceive for me? What is it that I'm giving them? And when you have that self awareness, then it does help you sort of like work on your strengths and work on your weaknesses. So that was my feedback from it. And again, everyone I think should take it. You
Selena,
talk about,
I
yes.
scored low on giving too,
Did
FYI,
you?
because like I have leading. I know I there's a difference I think between warmth and giving. And I always say if you have leading as a superpower, it means you're like, okay, we're all going here. Like it's my way or the highway. So like I that's my feedback from my team is I need to be more giving and believing and have more of those like emotionally intelligent qualities. Like, but the way I think about it, and I've known you for what 26 minutes, and I knew from the first 3 minutes you were going to have a shit. Excuse me, you were going to have a lot of superpowers,
Oh.
and you can feel that when you meet somebody because I know you are strong and capable in every situation. When people take our quiz, they actually have two things that happen. One is they'll say, "Do I really have six?" Like, and I'm like, "This was designed by a former McKinsey partner, my old boss." It means that you've been underestimating and under leveraging yourself. You really do have all six out of the eight. Like, why would you doubt yourself in this moment? That means in every situation, you have the capabilities to power yourself to that next marker of success. The second thing that happens is people are like, oh, look at the ones I don't have. I'm like, well, do you need them? Do you are those things that you want in life? Okay, then go develop them, but at least you now have an understanding and awareness. And I love having this shared language because all of a sudden we can explain to ourselves why good things have happened. You know, sometimes good things happen in your life and you're like, oh, I'm just so lucky. I'm like, that did not happen by chance. You did that thing, you created that moment. And I can point to every major milestone in my life and I can say, I know which superpower got me there. And that, by the way, fuels my belief that future markers are going to happen as well, because I know I created that moment.
Do you believe that there's a superpower that supersedes them all?
Everyone asks me that, and I tend to say no because I think they're all equal. Yeah, I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, my superpower is so boring." I'm like, "Well, what is it?" They're like, "It's achieving. I just get things done on time." I'm like, "Please come work with me. I don't have achieving as a superpower." You know, whenever you took those Sex and the City quizzes, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm Miranda." I'm like, Miranda had her act together. She owned her home. She was a partner in a law firm. Like, I'm sorry, but you should feel really lucky to be Miranda. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Like when everyone
Yep.
took those quizzes, like, I want to be Carrier, I want to be Samantha. I'm like, but Miranda was the strongest of them all. So I always tell people, you know, of the eight, no one is greater than the other because it's really about your self esteem and what's inside you and acknowledging that maybe society has taught you that some things are not deemed worthy of notice. And I'm like, I see you. Oftentimes, the introvert is the smartest, most powerful person in the room. And our society has skewed the dialogue in the other way.
You know, I also saw you talked about the performing superpower. You just named it there, and I've seen you talk about it in other talks. If we can delve more into this one, because I believe you said only 12% of the population have it.
Correct. Yeah, and this explains why we have stage fright. So just to double click on that performing superpower, it's I don't mind telling a story in front of audience. Public speaking is completely comfortable for me. If I have to pitch an idea or sell something, I've got it. And so this is not surprising that only 12% of our survey respondents have the performing superpower, right? Most of us, when we're asked to give a bridesmaid's toast or we're asked to give a presentation, we have a ton of stage fright built into us. And I always tell people, you know, you don't have to have all eight superpowers, but maybe now you can point to, hey, performing is a superpower. It's never going to be the best for me, but I want to get at least stronger, right? Life doesn't get easier, we get stronger. So I want to get stronger on this. And what we found is we can teach people the performing superpower. There's physical techniques, there's emotional techniques, there's mindset techniques, and we can help people practice it in a way so the next time they have to be in front of an audience or they have to pitch in front of their boss, they are at least more comfortable with that. But the performing superpower, to your earlier question, no one of them is greater than the other, but there are situations where that there is a superpower relevant to you succeeding in that moment.
I agree. And like you said, even if you're someone who works in sales or an entrepreneur and you have to advocate and be the face of your brand, and we all have to advocate for ourselves in one way or another. And I think that's where that performing superpower really comes into handy. So if someone is just like, look, that is the low, I scored the lowest when it came to performing superpower. How does someone, gain access or the ability to gain that superpower? And is it possible to learn how to do all the superpowers?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yes, you can learn as people age and climb the ladder. They go from having two superpowers to four or more. That's why I always tell people it's not a personality test; it's an inventory. It's just like let me mark the journey. By the way, I always think that my favorite award is not MVP; it's Most Improved Player. Because when you acknowledge, hey, I am stronger now than I was a year ago, that is so much better than trying to be most valuable player. I want to be most improved. So,
Mm.
absolutely, you can add superpowers to your portfolio. In terms of wanting to practice it, performing is one of those ones that you have to practice. So when people tell me they struggle with presentations, I always say, how many times did you practice it before you went into the meeting? Because I personally practice the presentation on my own 3 or 4 times, and then at least 1 or 2 times with another person. Because when you go in cold and it's the first time you're saying those words, you're absolutely going to have stage fright. There's no actor in the world, singer in the world who does not rehearse many more hours than 5 times. So I always say, first of all, you've got to practice. And that's the most important element of this is you have to rehearse. The second thing is I believe in breathing techniques. I believe in rituals. I believe there's all these ways in which you can learn storytelling devices. But it does boil down to every one of these superpowers is available to you. You have to practice them. And I started 7 years ago when we designed this quiz. I had three of them. And I said to myself, I want to be better at believing and self sustaining and giving. I now took the quiz 6 years later. I have four and a half of them, right? And I say that's progress for me. But the performing superpower, everything you've ever heard about stage fright, it's box breathing, it's physical movement, it's ritual, and then it's actually practicing. It's so boring to say that out loud, but it really does come back to practicing. I'm going to put you on the spot. The more interviews you do on the podcast, the better you're getting at it, right? You're more natural, you're more relaxed, you're in it.
No, that's so true. And I think that when it comes to the performing superpower, that's the one that gets the most accolades and praise. Like someone sees me on the stage, they're like fascinated, like, oh my God, you just did a great speech or you just did a great fireside chat. And I'm just like, no, I've been doing this for 10 plus years. It's really not
Correct.
that impressive. You could do it too if you like refocused and really wanted to. That's how I
So
sort
I
of look at
always,
it.
there's nothing in life that's effortless. It is effortful before it looks effortless. And I think what you just said is what I always tell people like, "Oh my gosh, you're so easy to talk to, you're very comfortable." And I said, "I've been practicing this since I was 12 years old." Just to go back, and I'll give you my personal example. When I was 12 years old, I had skipped a few grades. I have a tiger mom. My mom was a tiger mom before tiger moms were a thing. When I was 12 years old, I was a freshman in high school, and my parents realized they could not afford my college education. And so my dad went around town and said, "I got to help my kid make $28,000 a year." This was 1992, and these folks in town said, "Oh, well, she could try to become a speaker because there are these kids speaking competitions, Rotary Club, Lions Club. She could win $5,000, $10,000 scholarships to go to college." And so my dad enrolled me in Toastmasters, which is a phenomenal organization. If you want to learn public speaking, Toastmasters, it's a nonprofit. It's really affordable. Every town has a Toastmasters chapter. And these men taught me how to become a professional speaker at the age of 12. So I've been doing this for now, what, 33 years to be able to do this at a high level. So I've had 33 years of practice, but performing that superpower, it really boils down to just keep practicing it before the moment. And then when you get to that moment, you visualize success. And then the next time you do it, you're that much more relaxed. I will also tell you, find places to do it where it is risk free. I love karaoke, probably because I'm Asian and my parents had
Too.
a laser disc player in the 80s. But places like karaoke, where it's your friends and everyone has a terrible voice. You learn how to hold a mic, you learn how to just exude confidence in that way. Find some places where there's no risk to practice.
Yeah, and you're just present in that moment. And you get applauded either way. Like sometimes the worst singers get the most applause because it's that more entertaining. And you know, another thing, you know, when we talk about just believing, I feel like a lot of people don't believe they can. And they put people on a pedestal that have the strengths that they like or lack or that they want, not knowing that if you simply believed a little bit more and put forth the effort, you could have that too. Like you can really reprogram your mind to do anything with just practice and ritual.
Yeah. I wish we could show before and after tapes, right? Because I think if you saw who I was, 20 years ago and you saw who I was now, I think you would say, wow, that can be learned. And it comes back to your question you asked earlier on nature versus nurture. I think the point that's nature is we are all born fully self-confident. It's just the fact that you're a child and you just don't know better yet, that shame and embarrassment and disappointment hasn't happened to you. But the part that as adults we control, the nurture component of this, is we control our mindset. And we can make a choice to actually say, I can get better at this. There are so many times, why do we love the Olympics, right? Because people do things that people were like, that's not possible. And when you talk to those athletes, like if you talk to an athlete that has broken a barrier or has landed a milestone, they're the first ever, they always say, it's because I believed I could. It was more mindset because all of these elite athletes physically are all capable of it.
Mhm.
Why does one outperform the other? It 100% comes down to belief and mindset.
And I do want to make the distinction because some people are born with a athletic prowess. Some people, like I'm a natural extrovert. I grew up an only child, so I was nurtured into like having a big personality. So I do understand that there are some things that, right, like that make it a little bit easier. But to your point, Lisa, I am also a firm believer that you can do anything that you like, literally focus on and put your mind on. Another thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned that 55-year-old women have the most of these superpowers. Why is that?
I would say it's experience. Every time we do the survey, we find that women over the age of 50 have self-sustaining and creating. Those are the two superpowers that they develop over time. And when I look at those superpowers, I say, okay, creating, that's about reinvention. That is about facing adversity and having to come up with solutions. And self sustaining, I think over the age of 55, have you ever heard a woman in her 50s or 60s say, I've been there, I've done that, nothing can hurt me? Or like, oh, you sweet thing, you have no idea the things that I have seen. Or I've just given up up on caring what people think. Like you hear these phrases, and our society, I think, has become fairly ageist. And I have a lot of women over the age of 50 who work with us. And I always say, I'm so grateful for that. They have made all the mistakes. They have more knowledge than I do in different areas. And I don't want to make those mistakes. I want to hire people who know what they're doing. So I think it's really just experience, having faced adversity over and over again. And I work with a lot of women in their 50s and 60s who always say, I don't know, I've had a bunch of bad breaks, or I went through a divorce, or I got laid off, and all these things. And then we talk about how much stronger they've gotten a year after that. Or we meet them in these moments where they're incredibly fearful or insecure or feel like they can't do the next milestone. And a year later, they're like, I am stronger than I thought I was. That's always the phrase I hear. And so I think it's just naturally as we get older, we obviously learn more. We have more experiences. We've built more capabilities. That's natural. What I want for women over the age of 55 to do though is basically not be in their own way. Like you have done it. You have seen it. You know better than anyone what to do. And if you change your mindset around that dimension, a lot of reinvention happens. I worked with one woman who was in the same job for 25 years. And she said, I adopted two kids. I'm not married. I created my own life. And this over here is the job I really want, but I'm scared to go get it. And I said, you created your own family. You invented the family unit you most wanted. What would hold you back from going and getting that? And she took our quiz. She had 6 out of the 8 superpowers. She said, I'm going to do it. And 6 months later, she sent me this text message and she said, I got the job I wanted. I'm chief sustainability officer at this really cool company. And she made that leap, but she'd been in HR for 25 years at an old school corporation. And I was like, wow, you are more powerful than anyone else who's up for that job, even though you don't have the qualifications for that job description.
So, Lisa, what do you tell the folks who know that they suffer from low self-esteem and want to build their confidence? They want to get to that level where they can take a risk when it comes to a new job or maybe leaping into entrepreneurship or getting out of a bad relationship.
Yeah.
How do you gain confidence to do those things?
Well, first, I think you can't solve a problem until you've diagnosed the issue. So, the real reason we created those 6 forces of the inner critic is I love to use that to diagnose why I feel scared or why I'm fearful or why I'm sad. I'll give you an example. So, the first step is you got to diagnose which of the forces are operating on you. Then you have to make a choice to not take direction from it. And then you have to channel your best superpowers. I give you the best example. Someone on my team came in the other day and was like, I'm sad, I'm depressed. And I said to him, which of these 6 forces? And he's like, Lisa, I don't want to do your audience exercise. I don't want to tell you which of the 6 forces. I'm like, no, but seriously, like, I can't help you, right? You can't ask kids anymore if they're sad. You say, what happened? And he pointed to satisfaction conundrum. And I said, okay, tell me what happened. He said, well, I worked the last 8 years to be the captain of a volleyball league team. And then I hurt my shoulder and I had to step down as captain. And I got onto the subway today, pulled up Instagram, and the team that I had picked, they won the gold medal without me. And I'm not in that photo. And I tied so much of my happiness to being in that photo. I really wanted to win that gold medal this year. And I said, okay, put Instagram to the side. Tell me everything going well in your life. Just everything. Just take a moment. And he goes, I got a new apartment. We have a new chief of staff. We have this really cool opportunity for a collab. I'm dating someone. I was like, he's like, oh my God, I have all this great stuff going on in my life. I'm like, that didn't happen by chance. You did all those. And I said, what are you going to do now? He said, I'm going to go like that post on Instagram and congratulate those guys on WhatsApp. And by the way, I'm happy for everyone on social media because I see the abundance of my own life. I have no jealousy. I'm like, you go, you get that milestone. I'm like, I have a lot going on too. So one, you got to know why you feel this way. And most people will just spiral out. And so if you want to be more confident, step back and say, I think I have shrinking effect. I underestimate myself a lot. I definitely shortchange myself, or no, it's all for me. It's more about superhero facade. I feel the need to show that I'm perfect to everyone. And that's driving me crazy. So that's the first step is diagnose why you feel the fear, why you feel insecure. Then I always tell people, then hold up a mirror to all the qualities you bring to the world. And this is really hard. That's why we designed the quiz, by the way. I think it's hard for people to step back and say, not what I'm grateful for. Not that there's anything wrong with a gratitude practice, but what are all the ways that I make a difference in the world? Can I catalog that? Can I inventory that? That alone is super powerful. And then the last thing is take action. So, I've done some really things that I'm very proud of. Like we pivoted our fashion business in the pandemic to make hospital gowns and face masks. And everyone said, how did you do that? You're a small company. And I'm like, because we believed in what we had more than what we didn't have. Nobody was going to buy clothes for 2 years. So we had to pivot with purpose and not with profit in mind. And that was only possible because we knew our superpowers. We knew what gifts we could bring to the world.
My mom always told me if you want to build confidence, do something hard. And I think what she really meant
Yeah.
was brilliant, brilliant saying. And to me, what I think that means is take a challenge. Take a leap, because if you take that challenge, first of all, you're demonstrating some type of self belief. And then if you accomplish it, it just really boosts your self esteem. And even just knowing that you tried, sometimes you don't reach that benchmark, but the lessons you learn along the way are so priceless that it
Yeah.
really helps build up the inner self. So that's one
Yeah.
thing. Mhm.
No, I was gonna say life doesn't get easier, we get stronger. And Dr. Wendy Wallaby, who's the performance coach for the Chicago Bulls, she taught me something really important. She said it's not win loss, it's win learn. And she said if it's about win learn, then even if it didn't go the way you wanted, you step back and you say, what did I learn? There are no regrets, only learnings. And that just makes me stronger. So one of the things she said to me, which I loved, she's like, because I asked her, like, how do you get over a fear of asking someone on a date? She goes, well, first of all, you didn't have the date to begin with, right? You had nothing to lose. And if you just put yourself out there and that person says no, that's okay because I'm proud of you for even putting your hat in the ring for that. You learned something about yourself. So I love your mom too. Oh my gosh, should our moms be best friends? Like I
They
feel
really
like your
should.
mom and my mom would be just like besties.
I'm feeling the twin energy. So I really am. I
I mean,
really
she
am.
drinks red wine. I don't know what your mom's cocktail of
Oh,
choice is, but
my mom loves Pinot Grigio.
okay, they would get along. We'd get them like a nice case and they just go
Yep.
to town.
Yeah, they really would, though. Lisa, we do have to start to bring this conversation to a close. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, what are some simple steps that people could take to begin to walk in their power and transform from self conscious to self confident?
I'll give you my favorite one. I'll give you my two favorite ones. One, I have a thing called the 19 seconds that will change your life, and it's called 757. You close your eyes, you inhale through your nose for 7 counts, hold it for 5, and then exhale for 7 counts. And when you're doing this, think of the moment you are proudest of in the last 12 months of your life. And what that does is it opens up your vagus nerve so that all of a sudden your body relaxes, you are oxygenating your brain, you're lowering your heart rate, and you're remembering this really important moment in your life where you did something powerful. It's like that movie Inside Out, where the little girl's memories, her core memories, form the basis of judgment and character. That's actually real neuroscience. So, 757, whenever you feel doubt and insecurity, inhale and hold on to a moment you are proud of in your life. The second thing I will say is, I love gratitude journals. They're not wrong, but I would add to your life what I call a growth and contribution journal, which is document the ways in which you've gotten stronger. So if you took today and you said, a year ago, the person I was and the person today, write down everything you did to get stronger. And when you document it that way, it's sort of like the three things I'm grateful for, but the three things that I am better at or have gotten stronger on or have achieved in my life, that all of a sudden is a really powerful tool. And I think you have to write it down. You can't just say it in your mind. Like I can tell you now, this year versus last year, I just shared with you, I got a puppy. No way I was set up to handle a little monster. Okay. The last 5 days of my life have been terrible, but I love her nonetheless. I told her the other day, I said, I love you, but I don't always have to like you. But a year ago, financially, emotionally, lifestyle wise, I was not set up to handle this puppy. I'm proud of myself that I can handle this puppy. Well, it's still, jury's still out. I mean, it's only been 5 days. But that's my second idea for folks is a contribution and growth journal to go along with your gratitude practice.
And those are great steps. And then lastly, in the last 60 to 90 seconds, I do want to just end by asking, what type of competitive edge do you think confidence gives people in the workplace?
Well, if we define confidence as an understanding and trust in your own abilities and not about extroversion and charisma, I think anyone who has that sense of self belief is that much more capable of taking risk, learning from setback and disappointment, being resilient, being innovative. And so, knowing your abilities and your teammates' abilities will always set you up to have gas in the tank. So, you're a speedboat when everyone else is an aircraft carrier.
Lisa Sun, let us know how we can get hold of your book and take this survey that you keep talking about.
Yep. So you can go to myconfidencelanguage.com to take the quiz. The book is Gravitas, the 8 Strengths That Redefine Confidence, available wherever books are sold. And you can go to our website, gravitasnewyork.com.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time today and just the work you're doing to help women, to help people become the best versions of themselves. I'm a firm believer that we can reach our full potential if we try, if we put the effort in, if we have the right resources. I think we can. And I think that the work you're doing reaffirms that. So thank you so much.
That means so much coming from you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And I just want to end by letting the audience know again, confidence is a choice. You heard what Lisa said. And choose today. You have that power to say, you know what? I'm going to be the best version of myself. I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. I'm going to be better than I was a year ago. Make a goal, write it out, create a vision, and just keep pushing forward. And I promise you, you will get over that hill.